Greetings.
Hey, Victor.
Oh,
Can you hear
oh, there
me?
we go. Yes, now I can hear you. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna make you a co-host.
Sweet.
You should,
Awesome.
you should be able to
And sweet. And this should all be like or you're gonna cut this from the recording, right? All this stuff.
I don't know, Victor.
I mean, I know it's like, the pre-call, right? But I was just wanted to make sure. Cool, I
Probably,
think we're on.
I don't know if I'll edit it or not, Victor.
Okay, no worries. Okay. Do 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 do. Did it take like notes? Okay, I think we're good. I'll keep the slide. Well, let me turn my camera on too. Um, I'll run the slide deck. I think you're kind of only talking about etiquette and the timeline. So I think we're good. Cool. And then Corey's joining. Sweet. And then I gave Judy my link. That shouldn't be a problem, right? She can, like, it's all the same link.
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think it should be.
Yeah. And once Corey joins, we'll say hello. Hey, Corey, not sure if you can hear us. Feel free to do a mic
Hey,
check.
yeah, I got you.
Perfect. How
It
you
looks
doing?
like good. It's just gonna be the three of us.
Oh, no.
No, we've got more.
I was gonna say in the Zoom world, no one shows up until on the dot or like 30 seconds after. So there'll be more of us, Corey, I promise. We have Sheila Medina.
Hey,
Hi, Sheila.
Corey, thanks for inviting me to the economic development group.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. I thought that was a good discussion.
I hope it was beneficial.
It was. It really was.
Sandy's kicking off the reindustrialization study. Is that right? Y'all are getting into that?
Yeah, they've been doing a lot of behind the scenes data collection and kind of getting everything organized. And we actually have a first kind of kickoff meeting with key stakeholders on October the 31st. And, that is going to be a really interesting meeting because, some stakeholders want to be more involved than others. So just kind of getting all the various cast of characters in the room saying the same thing is kind of the challenge.
It is.
Admit. Cool.
Victor, you are right. In the Zoom world now, everybody comes in the last minute.
Yeah. Yeah. At literally 11:59, 12, we're gonna have like 10 people show up probably.
Hey,
Hello.
everybody.
Hello, Senator
Hey,
Carol.
Judy.
Hi,
How are
JJ.
you?
Hi, Senator Carol.
You all are well.
Well, we're hanging in there. How about that? Hanging in.
I understand.
I got my head above water this week, so.
Even Barrera. Aaron Patrick. Sweet.
I thought the draft of the report was excellent.
Thank you. We've gotten some good final comments. We'll go
Yeah.
through some of those today, but
I could see just a little tweaking, but all the substance and the layout, easy to follow. It gave you a good history, and it was very specific to the discussions and I thought it was
Did it,
great.
do you think it gave you and the other legislators what you all need?
Yes, because after I read it through a couple times, and I was able to start kind of formulating policy based on the discussions, and so I think it's going to be a huge help.
So, Senator Carroll, I heard a lot of great things. We had X Energy there at the nuclear conference and others, and your comments really resonated with X Energy, and there was a lot of
Oh, I
texting
wish
and
I'd
back and
known.
forth. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have loved to have met them and had a conversation with them, but yeah, I was a little intimidated coming after you, so I kind of stopped everything I was doing to listen to you. So
Well, also, Senator Carroll, since Christine's here, I'm going to give Christine, she doesn't know it. I'm gonna give her this. Hey, Christine, you want to plug the Morgantown, West Virginia meeting?
I would love to.
Yeah.
I will be there for that.
Yeah, for those of you that are interested in potential coal transitions to nuclear energy, we are hosting, and I'll put it in the chat, along with NEI, in EPRI and the National Energies Technology Laboratory and West Virginia University. We're spending 2 days on bringing the latest research together for various stakeholders to talk about what it might look like to transition a coal station to nuclear energy. So we're pretty excited. Normally this topic is one panel in many, but there's a lot of new products that have been coming out in research space in the past few months. Anyway, we're pretty excited. So thanks, Kenya.
Yeah, always giving you a plug. I'm going to be there, so if you want to come, I'm going to be driving to Morgantown, Christine.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be driving too, but only from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So
I'll be there with Christine. We'd love to see the work group members there. It should be a good event, and especially if we check in with what's happening in the nuclear space and build some good relationships. So it's a good timing with the report.
Absolutely.
All right, let me see. Time, we're right on time. So this is going to be a very efficient, structured meeting. This is our 4th virtual meeting. All of you have received a copy of the draft final report. Those that have responded with comments, we truly appreciate your time and effort and the comments that you've provided. We were pleasantly surprised with the comments that were provided. We feel it can provide some more clarity and alleviate any kind of lingering confusion that may be on some terminology in the report. Secretary Goodman has had the report. She's happy with the structure of the report and the readability of the report. I think it reads very much like our discussion, so it takes the reader through where we started and where we've ended up, and what this permanent nuclear energy authority, nuclear energy development authority could look like in the state. With that, what we're going to do today is Victor has some summary slides on the comments received on the final report. I'm going to go through just before we get to the actual comments. Victor, I'm going to go through a few of the early slides. I'll turn it over to Victor, where we'll talk about some lingering comments that we have. I really wanted to use this opportunity in the virtual meeting to allow some space for each of the work group members to maybe either vocalize or provide any last minute lingering comments. If you're like me, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I really should have said that or provided that comment. So if the time between last Friday and today you've had some lingering comments or some new ideas of, I really wish this needs to be emphasized or clarified, this is your time to do that. Being very sensitive, it is noon. We're in a lunchtime. I want to be considerate of your time. So we're just going to do some welcome remarks. That's really what I'm doing right now. The meeting is being recorded, and we'll provide that on the website. Victor, if you want to go to the next slide. We're on track. This is our 4th October meeting. We've come a long way since May. I appreciate your dedication and your time and commitment to the work group. We will, in the next 2 weeks, Victor and I will finalize kind of incorporating the comments we've received. And then we will meet our deadline to submit the report to, Christine. Senator Carroll said he's had trouble getting registered for the Morgantown event. So can we kind of work with that afterwards? Okay. We're on schedule. We'll do a final internal review, and then we'll deliver the report back out to the work group. We'll post it on our website, and we'll deliver it to LRC in the governor's office. So thank you. We did a lot of work in a very short amount of time, especially compared to some other work groups that have occurred nationwide that have had some longer timelines. I'm very happy with our discussion and how robust and balanced it was, and all the different perspectives that we've had to incorporate. All right, Victor.
Sweet. I think this is my section now. So thank you, Kenya, for the opening comments, and thank you everyone for being here today. Overall, I just want to communicate that I really appreciate everyone's participation in this work group and all the comments that we provided. As Kenya alluded to in the opening remarks that she made, we received a lot of positive feedback about the layout of the report and the content of the report, and a lot of feedback saying that we accurately describe the activities that all of us have done since May. So I just really want to say my appreciation and talk a little bit about some overarching themes and open-ended comments that I want to address as Kenya and I, over the next 2 weeks, finalize this report, and also give the working group members on this call the opportunity to bring up something that might have been keeping you up at night, as Kenya said. So with that, I can start with some clarity. I think there are a lot of comments in the feedback that were received on the rough draft of the final report that we'll be submitting on certain terms. These include nuclear renaissance, particularly how folks may not be particularly fond of that term. And I understand why folks might not be very fond of that term. So Kenya and I, over the next 2 weeks, will make sure that we clarify this term moving forward and make sure that we, hit the right buzzwords associated with it. Also, throughout the document, I use power production facility a lot. We got some comments and feedback associated with the use of that term. In interactions with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, power production facility is a term that they use for a operating commercial nuclear power plant that's providing electricity, which is what I use. But I do understand some of the issues some folks may have, specifically that if you read this term and if you specifically don't read the power in front of production facility, it could be associated with weapons production. So I'll make sure that I go back in this report and make sure that I clarify this term or use a different term to make sure that there's no confusion whenever someone reads this report about whether I'm talking about a commercial nuclear facility that's providing clean electricity and heat, or a weapons producing facility. That's a huge distinction, and I would rather just not have anyone worry about confusing those two facilities with this term. We also got comments about securitization. So we can talk a little bit about this more in the open commentary if anyone would like to provide either comments in the chat or turn your camera on if you are available, and turn your mic on to talk about a little bit about securitization, and if we need to clarify that term a little bit more, especially if we're going to be including it in our report, since we did discuss it a bit.
Well, Victor, I'll jump in there.
Mm-hmm.
We did include securitization in the discussion document because it was a topic that was discussed. We need to go back and make sure we're not, I believe we're gonna provide some clarity of, we're not gonna be ascribing a particular, position on securitization, but that it was a topic of discussion. I think we're gonna provide some additional language that some of you provided, to give some context to it, also to maybe highlight the various perspectives and sensitivities around this discussion. And mainly just highlight in the document that securitization is one that really requires a discussion and a stakeholder involvement discussion, beyond this group. We did want to include it because it was a point of discussion, and we do have some advocates for securitization. We have some that are a little less so and are very sensitive to kind of how securitization is utilized. So we're going to provide some clarity around that, but again, without really ascribing any kind of position around it, more the position of it. It is a topic that requires a little bit deeper dive and more robust discussion as we move forward. I think that's as much as I can provide at this time. We did provide, there was some language provided on both sides of securitization that I think in some of the comments I think we can incorporate there. So we appreciate that as well. Go ahead, Victor.
Thank you, Kenya. Moving on to the other two terms that we should clarify. There was some discussion and comments about insurmountable barriers. And I think there were comments associated with the idea that the use of insurmountable barriers may be confusing to some, and to others might paint too much of a quote unquote rosy painted situation. And I would typically agree. I think we should be more realistic about, there are no barriers in place that will potentially prevent the deployment of a nuclear manufacturing facility, a nuclear fuel facility, or a nuclear power production facility. But we should be more realistic about our wording in the document and really accurately describe that while there's no barrier, there's a lot of work and detail to be done, and that they should be taken into serious consideration. So I will clarify that throughout the report and make sure that it's adequately represented, that we are taking these opportunities that we presented in the report seriously, and that we have to make sure that we adequately, effectively, and efficiently address them if we want nuclear energy to have a prominent role in Kentucky in the future. The last term, go ahead.
Victor, I just want to say, I think, Lane Boldman on here provided some really good language around this, and really appreciate Lane's perspective on this. I think here, we had a lot of discussions about, the term barriers being dissuasive, there was a balance between opportunities, but yet, there are still, as Victor said, a lot of work still required to bring projects to Kentucky. So we're working on this language because we don't want to diminish the amount of work that's going to be required, but at the same time, we don't want to unintentionally put some kind of artificial exclusionary language around nuclear that would prevent, development opportunities. So I appreciate Lane Bowman's comments, and I'm sure I can give Lane some opportunity maybe to clarify her position there. We're just going to be providing just some additional color around when we're talking about insurmountable barriers, and not diminishing the amount of work that still will be needed in the development of projects in the state. I think that's how we would characterize it, Victor.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Kenya. The last term that we want to clarify as we move forward with finalizing this report for submission is there was comments and discussions around the definition of nuclear energy. there was a recent announcement by Nucor to invest, I forget how many millions of dollars into Helion, a fusion company based out of, yes, a lot of monies, as Christine pointed out with her fingers, to invest into a fusion company named Helion based out of Washington State. We want to clarify that the definition of nuclear energy in this report is considerate of fission and fusion, but that the focus around our discussions were primarily based on fission reactor technology due to the infancy of the fusion reactor community. We can discuss it more in the open mic if anyone would like to clarify any of their position or comments, but we really do believe that our discussions for this work group focused on fission technology. So I think it would be appropriate to characterize that nuclear energy does consist of fission and fusion, but the report mainly focused on fission. Okay, no comments so far. I mean, this is supposed to be a discussion, so anyone feel free to chime in as necessary, but I'll keep on going. Another comment that we received was clarifying LPO's authority under the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Their authority under Title 17 and other programs that were created and authorized added the ability for LPO to have several hundreds of billions of dollars for clean energy project deployment. So I think one thing that Kenya and I need to clarify is the exact amount that they have available for clean energy projects available, but also specify that these 100 billions of dollars are not all for nuclear energy projects. They're for a wide suite of clean energy projects that will be hopefully deployed if they are deemed adequate under the LPO application process. The next thing that we would like to clarify is that there was a short discussion towards, I believe, the page 37 of the report about consent-based citing what's going on currently with the Department of Energy in that process. There's also a discussion in the report about interim storage and permanent storage. And I think there should be more meat on those sections per se. We received a lot of feedback saying that it was kind of awkward in the way that you read it, and we would want to make sure that there's more accurate description of what's going on, considering that there's also been recent legal proceedings determining whether or not it is exactly legal for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to license an interim storage facility. And I believe someone piped up, or not piped up, excuse me, someone raised their hand or mic.
So I'm just going to jump in. I want to call out Kara Colton with Energy Community Alliance provided us some comments around providing a little bit more color and meat on consent-based siting in terms of interim storage and permanent storage and some of the, as Victor mentioned, some of the recent legal issues around that. I don't think we quite gave enough language on I'm not saying that we diminished, we recognize the importance of consent-based siting. I just don't know if we gave enough attention to it in the report in terms of what all has been happening with it and its use in terms of interim storage and permanent storage, and how important that is. So you may see, thanks to Kara, a little bit more kind of where we are right now in terms of consent-based siting and some of the issues with the NRC as Victor mentioned. So that's where we are. It wasn't this is a bad section, or the comment wasn't really negative. It was just, hey, don't make it seem like it's simple. And I think our language around consent-based siting may have implied a more simpler process than what actually is occurring. And we're going to give a little bit more color on that in the report, thanks to Kara and ECA providing us some suggested language there. Go ahead, Victor.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So if there's anything I can do, kind of because the consent-based siting is a DOE driven initiative, and certainly they, because of the legal aspects around interim storage and kind of where we've been in permanent storage. As you might imagine, there's a pretty scripted conversation associated with that. But you know, this is changing, in at least in DOE space, changing kind of rapidly. If I could find a stable website, would that be helpful?
I think it would, Christine,
Absolutely.
if we could provide a reference or a little bit more kind of stability to that section, and then we can happily share kind of what Kara was sending us around this section, but we appreciate kind of some DOE sides of that as well, since apparently it's evolving and moving and very fluid at the time.
Yeah, and the reason the you know, for a variety of reasons, the reasons in interim storage are different from the consent-based siting, you know, but it is considered in a procurement space. So those conversations are very controlled, and you know, any answer, there's no, and you're familiar with this at a state level, Kenya, you know, you don't answer any individual's question without sharing that with everyone that's interested. So, but I will work with, I'll send a note over to DOE comms and find out what is the most stable place we have. Sometimes they change the websites around, and I wouldn't want you guys to be using something like that. If I can't find a website, then I will find a few documents.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Christine.
And Victor, if you want me to, I can take this last one.
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
So in the report, as some of you mentioned, we use the term new utility business models. It would appear Zoom is not cooperating with everyone today in terms of audio. So anyway, we use the term utility business models. And in our discussion, I think it was more about these projects are so financially intensive that we may see, I guess, rather than new utility business models, rather new utility partnerships that would enable a project to come, a reactor project to come to fruition. We're going to clarify that the language around utility business models does not imply that any kind of deregulation pathway in the state of Kentucky. It just simply means our utilities have had the ability to co-own and partner on projects. It's just that within the nuclear space, we may see new partnerships or partnerships maybe we haven't seen before, especially given our utilities relationships with the two RTOs, and then we have TVA and of course LG&E and KU in the middle. So we just wanted to clarify. Some thought that meant, you know, changing our utility regulatory model. We're going to provide some clarity that that is not what is intended around the use of that term, and we'll fix that in the report.
Agreed. Thank you for summarizing that. Does anyone have any comments associated with either the utility business model bullet point that Kenya just discussed, or anything else on this slide?
I think the clarification is really helpful, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Aaron, did you want to provide anything there? I know you provided this some robust comments.
Yeah.
If you'd like to share, it's an open time for you to share.
Yeah, I think you articulated it really, really well. I think, you know, the one thing I'll just add for the broader group is that LG&E KU actually owns a part of a power plant in Ohio, part of a power plant in Indiana, and the Trimble County Generating Station, which is operated by Louisville Gas and Electric, is partially owned by utilities in Indiana and Illinois. And what's interesting about all three of those plants is that they dispatch into three separate ISOs. So they're dispatching into MISO, into PJM, and into LG&E KU. And yes, that's a little bit of a difficult IT challenge, but it has been done, and that model is working really, really well. And I think that might be similar to what we might see on the joint-owned nuclear power plant as well.
So, Aaron, I really appreciate your comments that you sent. And we'll be sure to provide a little bit more clarity in that section, so that we don't unintentionally imply, deregulation.
Wait, thank you, Aaron. Anyone else want to chime in on anything else on this slide before I move to the next one? I'll give a good 5-second count. Doesn't look like it, but thankfully we have an open mic slide at the very end as well. So moving on to some major themes that were presented in the document. There were some comments posed by the working group members associated with the heavy focus on nuclear power production facility or a commercial nuclear power plant in the report. And then they discussed the opportunity to add more language in the report about the opportunity for Kentucky to participate in the nuclear supply chain. So I did want to bring this comment up and allow the working group to add any additional commentary for what Kenya and I will be doing to address the comment by adding a little bit more language. If anyone would like to comment now, feel free to. If not, I can go on to the next bullet point that we had. There was a few comments associated with the budget for this organization, which we are going to call an authority. The budget comment was specifically that the requirements that we have for the director and the associated staff for this organization seems a little on the low end. I'm not sure if anyone would like to add additional commentary about whether they believe if that's the budget that we've set up.
I'm going to jump in here because I'm just going to tell everyone the numbers came from UK, Dr. Andrews, and I think Rodney's on and Sheila Medina's on. Also, we are going to clarify when we say that the Nuclear Energy Development Authority, it'll be attached. Rodney, if I'm correct, we're going to recommend University of Kentucky Center for Applied Energy Research. And I think the reason why is it gives you a little bit more flexibility in some hiring, but Rodney, I'd really like you to provide some color on kind of what you provided us in terms of the budget and what you have to work with within the university system.
Yeah, those numbers just came from crosswalking what positions we were thinking would be needed over to UK's standard hiring tables. So, what you're comparing it to in terms of the director slot is somebody who has $5 million a year in external research funding. INL and DOE Nuclear just released a few positions last week, one of which was to be head of their reactors program, and the salary we put out is in the middle of the range that was listed for. So I don't think, unless we're wanting to spend a ton of money on somebody just to do it, I don't think they're that far out.
Thank you for clarifying.
Corey Hicks.
Go ahead, Corey.
I think that was one of my comments. I'd be happy to own that. I appreciate that additional information, Rodney. I think in the private industry, dealing with the type of nuclear experience that was described, in addition to public affairs, public speaking, and things of that nature, that's what kind of raised my concern. I'd be interested and I could talk to you offline about some salary surveys that could be helpful on this. Or, I know that one of the other people with the Nuclear Working Group or the Nuclear Energy Institute has previously called in. They may have some salary surveys. I don't know that necessarily comparing this position to a government employee is maybe necessarily the best benchmark. But that being said, I understand there's a lot of factors that go into this, and UK probably has a variety of levers to pull on this matter. So, it's not a major issue, but I did feel like the number was low.
Yeah, Corey, you already hit it on the head though. This will be a government employee in so much as the university is an instrumentality of the Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
So we have more flexibility in salaries than state government does. And so, we were just trying to put in a number that would land where this sort of hire would land if I were just doing it without the context of everything else. So yeah, we can talk, because we can always amend these numbers as we move ahead. The problem is you're starting to get into the point of having to have approval from the Board of Trustees for the salary.
Thank you. Christine, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so just in my opinion, these types of roles, certainly the money is important, but I think the autonomy and the authority that they have, and given the opportunity to lead the nuclear development in a state that hasn't had it, I think is a tremendous opportunity that will draw folks just based on what the job offers. We certainly have been seeing that we struggle in the national labs and the government with what we can pay people.
Mm-hmm.
And, we really, what we have found successful, and what you might want to think about, and it's probably not in this report, but maybe in your position description, is to really consider how much autonomy you can free up for the person that gets this role.
So Rodney, did you want to talk about some of the, I'm just going to say it this way, some of the flexibility in attaching it to the center versus attaching it to the university? And maybe that gets to what Christine was saying, having a little bit more autonomy.
Yeah, part of it is just the mechanisms of getting things done. If it isn't in an existing unit and we tried to do it as a separate unit, it would then have to go through all the approvals. And you've all probably heard of something called University Senate before. That is something that exists to make everything take way longer than it should. And so having it in an existing unit is much simpler, much more direct. And since the center is a staff-based unit, we can go directly out and hire. It's not like it has to go through a faculty committee, faculty hiring, and all of those sorts of things. So that's why I added that comment of we may want to specify it being at the center, because then I can simply set up that architecture and start hiring.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And I think clarifying that in the report would be at least important. Give them the opportunity to know that.
Yeah, and the other part about it is then as soon as this moves ahead in the legislature, then we can go ahead and write positions and advertise them so that we could start as soon as the new fiscal year. So that's that's the other part about it, is it just does give us a much faster route to get things accomplished. It also gives us a much shorter reporting thing. I mean, I report to the vice president of research, who reports to the president.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about as short as we can get. And in turn, Christine, in terms of autonomy, we can let it operate as autonomous as it can within sticking with, the universities and state rules. It's not like there's going to be anybody trying to tell what it needs to do or changing that, messing with the mission at all. It's one of the things we do have the ability to do.
I'm sensitive to it because I have benefited and not benefited, I guess is the nicest way to say it, from the flexibility of GAIN. So, and I think, not that you guys are trying to replicate what we do, right? But being mindful of less is more in terms of defining mission and giving that leader a little bit of space. That really has turned out to be successful in the establishment of GAIN and its continuation. And I do absolutely, I think you guys are making all the right choices in terms of attaching it to the center and having it staff. I think those are all smart things. But I'd be more than happy to chat about maybe how we've handled some of the challenges or navigated the challenges in terms of getting direction from DOE, but operating under a BEA contract.
I think that would be a helpful conversation. So I'm sure
All right,
Kenya and I
well-
will follow up.
Well, also, Rodney, if you're gonna make a change in the budget and it's in the report, let us know by next week. If not, we'll keep to the budget that's currently in there, Rodney.
Okay. Yeah, quite honestly, the only thing I would say is to change the budget upward too much in terms of positions, we would have to start talking about somebody who has a faculty position. And I don't think that's what we want.
No. Let me just say that, no.
If you want to discuss autonomy.
There you go.
All right, let's move on, Victor.
Okay, thank you. The next major theme that we encountered was that we got a lot of encouraging comments from, I believe, Lane Bolden specifically, about making sure that we adequately characterize the importance of community engagement through two-way conversations and also environmental justice considerations, which after receiving the comments from Lane and others, I do think that we need to address this more in the discussion. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to pop in and
Well,
leave
I
us.
think it'd be a good opportunity to say, I don't know if we spent a lot of emphasis and context around the specific use of the terms environmental justice. I think we
Correct.
did. I think we did give specific emphasis on being a trusted community voice and the importance of community engagement in a way that doesn't detract from the regulatory prescribed community engagement pathways like in NEPA and the NRC. That said, I do recall Senator Webb mentioning, some sensitivities around, there are areas of the state where she feels, some priority focus should be just as we've had the transition away from fossil fuels, as well as kind of some of the economic impacts that have come from that. So I do think we can give a little bit more emphasis and color around, kind of commentary around a little bit more importance of recognizing those under-resourced communities or under-supported communities of the state that may be, more priority for community engagement first. Victor and I haven't talked a lot about it, but Lane, I'd appreciate an opportunity if you could maybe express some of your comments, which were very appreciative in this.
Yeah, a lot of the language was around community education, but what I'm trying to get at is that making sure we're also receiving information from the community, and that we're structuring these things in a way where they get to express their concerns, fears, old information. The way it was worded just sounded very, very one way, that we are teaching the community rather than hearing out what concerns they have. And so I just want to make sure we capture that in the language.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, Lane. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And Kenya and I will make sure that over the next 2 weeks that we adequately address that concern, so we can make sure that anyone that reads this report is very aware that it's a two-way conversation where the community is also giving information to the folks associated throughout this nuclear energy development process.
Also, Lane, did you have anything else while I've got you there? Anything jumping else at you? You provided some good language in terms of around the barriers and not negating the amount of work it will require in communities and this two-way community. So I'm just wanting to give you some space maybe to kind of voice kind of your perspective on where your comments were.
Yeah, I think you summarized it well. I think we just have to be realistic, because the thing is, if we paint too rosy a picture of the fact that there are real, there may not be legal barriers, but there are clearly, heavy lifts that need to happen. And I think we just need to be realistic about it, because the more realistic we are, the more that the community will see us as trusted partners.
So the way I like to phrase it, I had a good conversation with Gain and Christine, and we were talking about citing, and they use some terms. Christine, help me out here. There's some terms around, well, there are exclusionary criteria, which is kind of like a go, no go. And then is it aversion criteria, Christine?
Avoidance factors.
Avoidance factors. So I would kind of mirror that. I don't think we have necessarily exclusionary criteria, but we do have areas of the state where we may have avoidance factors, to Lane's point, where the community voice may be one that is just not open enough to kind of certain aspects of the nuclear energy development supply chain, nuclear ecosystem, I'm going to put it that way. So Lane, I appreciate that. Just realizing that trying to find the right balance of the language, and the way you said it, not painting it too rosy, but also not making it seem like we don't have, that we're not open to development opportunities. So we'll work on it, Lane, and you gave some great language around that.
Thanks.
Kenya, it's been a minute since I read that section, but one of the ways that when I'm working with communities or folks that are new to nuclear and interested in the technology, we talk about ensuring that everyone has the right, has a baseline knowledge to be comfortable participating in the conversation. So you don't want anyone in that forum to feel intimidated because of the technology that you're talking about. So that might be something to assure in your community engagement, that you're dedicated to making sure that folks come in with a common set of facts or something like that, such that there is a constructive and open conversation.
All right, Victor, I think we can maybe work with Christine and maybe add that in on that section, that it's important that when we talk about community engagement, creating a baseline of understanding so that there can be a two-way communication and that we can listen to the concerns of the community.
Agreed. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Lane, for the thumbs up. I'll move on to the next bullet point, slightly related to kind of a variety of topics that we've discussed today, but some clarification on who we mean by stakeholders whenever we're talking about engaging them, either in community engagement, or any topics associated with utilities, RTOs, etc. I think we use the word stakeholder a lot throughout this document, and we just need to make sure that we adequately describe what group of folks that we might be characterizing when we're referencing the word stakeholders, but also being careful and not being too prescriptive and making sure that other groups are not considered whenever we're talking about these type of issues, whether it's environmental justice, community engagement, or the topics associated with these business models for utilities taking on nuclear power production facility projects. Can leave an open mic open for a second if anyone wants to talk about that, or if Kenya, you would like to add a little bit more color to that bullet point.
I think you covered it. I think we all tend to default stakeholder engagement. Either we leave it so broad that nobody knows really what we're talking about there, or it's too prescriptive. So I think some of the comments we can help provide some clarity of when we use that term, stakeholder engagement, knowing that stakeholders may be different if you're talking about fuel facility, or if we're on the utility side, or if we're on, interim storage and consent-based siting, that not all the stakeholders are all the same all the time, and it's kind of fluid. And I think that's what you're getting at, Victor.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll take this last one. So we didn't get strong opinions on the name. So there wasn't a strong consensus other than it doesn't need to be a commission for various reasons, the official name, because of the one, we have a public service commission, and then there's the federal NRC. We had a lot of suggestions, but none that were resounding. So I took it upon myself and said, I'm partial to authority. At some point, you have to pick one and go with it. I do think someone provided that development needs to be in there, Nuclear Energy Development Authority, because Nuclear Energy Authority could have a distinct different meaning than Nuclear Energy Development Authority. So we're just going to go with authority as the permanent name as it is, just because no one really gave me anything that worked any better. I joke, Christine said, well, we could call it the conclave. And I was like, I don't know if I want to be the state that is the Nuclear Energy Development Conclave. So I don't think we're going to go with conclave. But I think the biggest consensus is not to have commission, and authority seem to fit because it does lend itself as a trusted voice. Commission's more regulatory, so we're trying to give it something that has authority but non-regulatory and can be a trusted community voice, in this topic. So plus right now, if we change it, then I've got to do a find and replace throughout the whole document. So, but I just want you to know, we did get a lot of, I'm not, it wasn't I don't like it. It's like, I'm not, I don't not like it, but I'm not in love with it, but I don't really have another, word for it. So Victor and I we've had to go with something in the final report. And I think Senator Carroll and the other legislators will kind of understand, having participated here, what the intent is, with that name, as we spelled it out in the mission.
Well, Kenya, in true nuclear fashion, we're going to shorten that to an acronym anyway, so you don't really need to worry. No one will remember what A stands for.
I know it's going to end up being, Rodney, it's going to be like NEDA, Nuclear Energy Development Authority. I mean, we're going to be calling it NEDA or NEDA, I mean, we're never.
Or we just call it NED.
Yeah, no, I mean, it might end up just being NED. So I'm glad we can provide some levity to it, but you're right, Christine. We're never going to say the name over and over again. It'll, as we do, it'll just be an acronym moving forward. All right, anything else, Victor?
I don't think so. I think now.
I hope I win points for creativity. Not that you're giving anything out, but
you did, Christine. I can honestly say I've never thought to call anything I've worked on a conclave. So that was some good levity. But now we're at 12:45, being sensitive of everyone's time. Victor's going to take some live notes, just to give you an idea. This is recorded. Victor and I will be going through each of your comments, incorporating and changing and providing clarity in the final report. This is sort of your last opportunity to get in some last minute changes. I do want to recognize if Duke is on here. Duke provided some language around really emphasizing, emphasizing the need to create I would say, I can't remember the exact language, a legislative and regulatory environment that is supportive of nuclear energy development. I think we're gonna take that language just to so that Duke's aware. I think we're gonna take that language, we'll put it up in the discussion section and maybe create a section under policy. And we'll frame that comment in the context of, among the utility among the utility members of the work group, there was a strong consensus of the need to create a legislative and a regulatory environment that sends the right market signals and supportive of nuclear development. I just wanted to let you all know that we did hear that comment. Victor and I have talked about it. I think it does have a place, but I think it's going to be up in the discussion and maybe a section under policy, and then we'll ascribe it to more of a discussion around, utility consensus around that moving forward that would enable projects to develop. So I hope Duke is okay with how we're going to incorporate that in the report. We wanted to let you know that I appreciated the comment, and I think we can provide a home to it if we can provide some context to it in the discussion section.
And Kenya, Amy, sorry for a little technology
Yeah.
challenge this afternoon, but appreciate how you're thinking of framing that in the report.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity, and that we have an opportunity to accurately express your perspectives and discussions. As you're aware, we're not ascribing any particular judgment or perspective on that. But we know it's important that if it was a topic that was discussed or a topic that repeatedly comes up in the discussion, that we should give it its due time in the report and make sure we emphasize that it may not have been something the group as a consensus agreed on, but then we had subsectors, subgroups to where it was very important from their perspective. So Ms. Spiller will be sure to kind of frame that in the context around our utility concerns and the policy environment and how important these next steps are in this legislative session to creating that market signal and the kind of regulatory legislative environment that's supportive to move projects forward. Anything else? Now's your time.
We have two hands.
Yeah,
we
go
have,
ahead.
I believe Senator Carroll raised their hand first. So if you would like to go.
Yeah, Kenya, one thing I'd like to discuss, really the only appropriation that we talked about in this document has to do with the staffing of the authority. And I'm wondering if we don't need to make some kind of statement about a recommendation. I mean, we know Tennessee, I think it's 50 million they're putting in, and other states, Wyoming, 160 million. Do we need to do some type of a recommendation to create a fund that can be used for the advancement of nuclear energy in the Commonwealth, but just some type of statement of recommendation that we could kind of refer to as we move forward? I hate to let the session go without trying to get additional funds to move us a few more steps ahead.
So I think, without Senator Carroll, making a recommendation, I don't know how to say it. I think what I think we can do is building on Duke's comment about a supportive legislative and kind of the need around financial security. I think we could have the section, Senator Carroll, I'm going to add it in policy, Victor and I, where we can give the examples of what other states have done and say, this is an area where we discussed that the legislature and stakeholders should talk about the development, beyond this work. You see where I'm going, Senator?
I do, and I like that approach.
So I do personally, I will say, I do believe there needs to be some kind of fund. And I think if I take my work group hat off and put on the energy office hat, I think in order to keep up with other states, it is something. I think where the discussion comes in is what that fund can be used for, not just for supporting on the utility side, but, Senator Carroll, as you're aware, incentives on the fuel side or supply chain, and what does that kind of fund look like? Christine, you just said West Virginia is thinking 300 million. We saw Tennessee at 50.
Yeah, and can you, either myself or Christine Sismadia can help point out other states where there's public mention of the dollars they're moving towards this. Nebraska has been doing a statewide siting study that they've dedicated a significant amount of money to. There's Colorado's doing a study specific to their coal stations that they've dedicated, and smaller amounts to, but maybe capturing just what we know today out there relative to other states, and those dollars in the appendix would be helpful.
So Victor made a note of that. Senator Carroll, do you think that'll give you what you need in order to go into the legislative session with your other counterpart?
Yeah, I think so. We'll just need to discuss some language for the policy and kind of put some parameters and maybe look at some of the other states on how they wrote that language, and just to leave it broad enough to be useful in whatever sector that we've covered with this group.
So just to recap, it won't be an official recommendation of the work group, but we'll include a policy section of the report. We'll build on Duke's comment that will Duke's comment around creating a supportive environment for the nuclear energy ecosystem development. And then we'll go into some more language around what other states have done kind of under the policy support in terms of financial support. And then we'll also talk, I think I've heard this in the work group, we'll actually call it out. We'll say the work group, we had many discussions about Kentucky not wanting to be left behind. And then we'll point to what other states are doing. I think, Senator Carroll, that can give the legislature enough cover to then have the discussion of what this might look like once we submit the report.
I like
Awesome.
it.
Thank you. Thank you to you both and Christine for jumping in and discussing that. I
Yeah.
know Lane Boldman raised their hand next, and I know Aaron raised his. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, Victor, the only other state I want to add to your notes for discussion is, so Alaska has done some work on their permitting process as well as Wyoming.
Okay.
I don't know that they wrote, it's just a note for us to explore, because it's not specifically pointing out legislative policy. So it may not fit, but I think it's worth a
Yeah. We can also include non-legislative actions, right? Because
Yeah.
it's a whole society approach. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Thank you. So I think Lane Boldman had their hand raised next, and then Aaron
Yeah.
Patrick. So go ahead, Lane. Not sure.
Yeah,
if
and at this point, when we're at the end of the call, I want to take a step back, and I appreciate looking at what other states are doing with this energy source. But I want to pose to the cabinet, to Kenya, at a certain point, we also need to address that we're in an energy transition. We're going to be having this conversation independently, but we're also having conversations on hydrogen and having conversations on solar, and they're probably all in different stages. And I think there needs to be somewhere, not necessarily in this group, some recognition of the competing opportunities of all of these potential investments, that more than one entity may be going after certain loan programs or federal incentives, or that could compete against the others. So I think it would be good to have some kind of summary or guidance, or some kind of collection of the energy transition conversations that are happening. And I don't know if that already exists, but I want to raise that point.
So that's a good point, Lane. I need to, honestly, I got to be honest with you. I might need to talk with you offline. I got to stew on that a little bit of where I could put that. it may be up in the beginning somewhere where we talk about, low carbon kind of energy technology development, innovation. It also may be a good time to talk about just the state energy office because, you know, we do work in all of these spaces as well and on the policy side. But nuclear was so specific that we would not have enough bandwidth or personnel to work on it in addition to our state energy office duties, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Because we did get some discussions where, hey, this energy authority should do all energy. And I thought, well, we do have the state energy office that does that as part of our mission as well. But nuclear was so specific in that the amount of work required federally and in communities that it needed some additional work. I think I can put it up front lane. I just don't quite know how it looks like. I just need to stew on it a little bit.
Yeah, and I want to recognize that nuclear is starting from a different place, but you know, we are in a situation now where there's going to be competition for capacity on the transmission lines and you know, various, you know,
well, actually, Lane,
you know.
I know where we can put it. And there's the section Victor has on make a note. I think there's a section we have on kind of external factors. If you'll remember, it's kind of external where we talk everything from RTOs to geopolitical to, I think we could put another another sub-bullet in there where we can talk about, you know, competing, you know, fuel developments and technology developments in this energy transition and how that may affect nuclear development, if that's what you're getting at, Lane.
Yeah, I just think at some point we need to address that elephant in the room because you know, there's a lot of innovation happening all around, and at some point people will need to make choices on certain aspects, and it would be good to at least lay that out at the front end.
Okay. All right. Aaron, you had your hand up. I thought Victor said you wanted to make some comments.
I'll say something real quickly. I just want to say, Kenya, we really appreciate and really commend your leadership here. Thank you for coordinating all of this and for
the legislature told me I had to.
well, seriously, we really appreciate it. And then, you know, I also do want to say, I'd be amiss not to say that I think the idea of housing what we can at the Center for Applied Energy Research at the University of Kentucky under Dr. Andrews' leadership is a really excellent idea. I'll just say real quickly that, you know, I've worked with university faculty all across Kentucky and now in multiple states, and there's no one better than Rodney. So it's a really great idea. I really fully support it.
All right. Any other thing? And going back to Senator Carroll, if you're still here, and any other legislatures outside of the work group, of course, Senator Carroll, do you need us to get with either NEI or NIA to get you a list of kind of the financial packages, maybe other states of development? Because I know I know Jeff Harmon might be on, and go ahead and kind of start getting your background on that.
Yeah, Kenya, that would be a big help. I mean, I've kind of got an idea what I want to ask for, and I'll talk with Stephen and Randy about that. But just having some background to cover and to kind of put it in perspective on what's happening and the risk we're taking by not investing now, I think that would be beneficial.
Hi there, it's Christina at NEI. Hi, Senator Carroll. So that's something that NEI can be very helpful with. We have kind of the background on what all states are doing. So happy to give you all of the list of all the numbers.
Great, thank you, Christine.
All right, so I will mark that off my to-do. Christine, thank you so much. The other Christine, thank you so much for stepping in, working with Senator Carroll. I want to also give the floor to Judy Greenwell. Judy is Victor's boss. And Judy, if you've got any last minute comments before we close out today.
Not really, but I just want to commend you all. I think what you're doing is potentially a great role model for other states. So we're really excited to be able to be of technical assistance to you, and really excited to take lessons that you're learning and share them with other states who are, many of whom are thinking along similar lines. I really think the leadership that you're exercising, the thoughtfulness that you're all bringing to this conversation is just nationally significant. So we're really very happy that we could be part of it.
All right, last minute, raise your hand if you have any other comments. Like I said,
Christine.
the process is Victor, Judy, and I will take this open commentary as well as the written comments, and we'll start fine tuning it. Dr. Andrews, Rodney, again, if you have any last minute, if we need to tweak anything on the section relating to the budget, or we already are going to change it to UKCAER, but feel free, Rodney knows, reach out at any time. We'll go ahead and make those changes as well. Anything else? Last call before we get off. We're here to hour. I got you out a little bit early.
Kenya?
Yeah.
I need you guys to do a find and replace on one word.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Trigger.
Trigger.
Yeah, I know where we're using it, it's a triggering event.
Yeah.
But trigger and nuclear, probably not good language to mix. So I have been thinking about this, and it woke me up in the middle of the night. Initiating event is
Okay.
what I would suggest.
All right, we can do that. Victor, you've got that. That's going to be your fix.
Sorry, it's a little nit, but it has been on my mind.
Well, right. I understand where you're coming from. A trigger event in the reactor space means something.
Yeah, and it's, and it goes along with probably some of the remarks that you got on production, and just what it, we have a history in the United States that nuclear is related to weapons, and we don't want to be invoking that. And I'm just going to pile the praise on. I think this has been an excellent example, not only about how you can do it, but how quickly you can do it. And I can't wait. Every presentation I give, folks know that Kentucky will be publishing a report by the end of the year. So hopefully you'll get a lot of traffic on that. And yeah, thanks for
also, I want to say Christine has been this started when we did our partnership with Gain started when we did a summer workshop series. Gain also, I just want to plug them. They do have the ability to work with utilities, and they have a voucher program. So Christine, I just wanted to say, we appreciate you working with, I know you've got a project here in Kentucky with one of our utilities. We appreciate you and your staff extending your expertise into Kentucky. Also know you're working with Arizona, which gives some good comparisons on the Salt River project, and working in Arizona with what you're doing here in Kentucky with one of our utilities. So if you are a utility out there, or someone who's got a question around nuclear technology, definitely reach out to Gain, learn about their voucher program and their other programs. They've already been very, very worthwhile relationship here in Kentucky. So last call, Christine, I just want to give you a plug.
Not a question for myself. Well, I guess a question, yes. Joe, I know you left a comment in the chat, if you're still here, about whether or not you were going to be able to review the report again. Can you describe, answer your question? I just want to make sure that we adequately.
So this is your review. So this was the final comments. What the next version of this will be the one we submit. So make sure if you have things that you're burning to get changed, or there were a lot of comments that were just sort of comments but not actionable comments. So if you have actual burning, actionable comments where you're like, this needs to be changed, this, Christine's example of trigger, please make sure you get those, what I would call comments with emphasis to Victor. We know there were a lot of kind of few grammatical wording, commas, things like that. We're working on that. We'll do the final edit, but now's your last call because the next time you see it will be the final report.
No, my question was more just related to whether we would get a version of the final report that showed markups so we could easily identify the differences between the final and the original.
Victor, what's your thoughts on that since you're doing the editing?
I am more than happy to share documents. I think we just want to make sure that maybe Kenya provide a little bit more context of when you thinking are thinking about submitting this.
Well, I think
so
we can, Joe, if you want to track change markup, I think I could provide it to you before we go and do the, you know what I'm saying, before you kind of accept, delete the comments, and then you make it look, obviously presentable. So Victor,
Right.
I think we'll have a version that, Victor, I'd recommend you have a version where we do all of the track changes and we keep that. And then we save another version that's going to be the one where we kind of accept them all and it becomes clean. And that way we've got a marked up version and a clean version. Does that make sense, Victor and Judy?
That makes sense to me, and that's completely fine. Yes.
Thank you.
Joe, does that satisfy?
Yep, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to close out. Thank you all for your time, and this completes for the most part, your work group service. Feel free to reach out us to the energy office or even NIA, NEI, I have to get all my acronyms, or GAIN, any of us who can help you as you're starting to do your own independent work outside of the work group in this space. And Senator Carroll will make sure we get you the information you need to have what you need going into the session.
Thank you, and thank all of you for your assistance. This has turned out even better than I thought it might. So very grateful for all the input.
All right. Well, thank you all. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. And again, we're always here if you've got questions or comments, but no more comments on the report. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.